Hi again, everybody. So in this document, I'm going to look over the things that we're going to be doing every week instead of having classes. Okay, because as a reminder, we're not having any official classes where I'm going to, teach you stuff. You're going to be, doing some learning on your own, which we will, discuss on the Wednesdays for those of you who showed up. And you'll be handing in some stuff and getting feedback on it, and that's how the learning assessment is going to go. So you're going to get points for the stuff that you do at home and hand in, and it's actually the biggest chunk of your mark because the weekly activities are worth 4% per week for 15 weeks. So that's a total of 60%. So that's pretty good, because if you keep doing it, and even if you get partial marks for some of them, you're getting steady marks as you go through the semester with very little kind of big chunks. So it spreads your work out a little bit, and it kind of keeps you engaged with the material on an ongoing basis, so that if you do this, you're not kind of in this situation where you ignore, and then have to cram a bunch of stuff in one go. In this course, and if you've looked at any of the other things, especially the PowerPoint where I was, talking a little bit about content, you might have gotten a bit of a sense of this being a course where your worldviews might be challenged a little bit, especially if you're non-Indigenous in particular. And some of it might make you uncomfortable because it's not a comfortable feeling sometimes to find out we've been wrong about something all our lives, or that we've been lied to by the media, by our schools, by our governments. This is normal, but you know what? Discomfort is actually a crucial part of learning, because we don't really learn if everything just matches what we think we know. And usually there's a chance that we're kind of filtering information when that happens, because the world doesn't conform to what we want it to be generally. So, I'm hoping this will lead to intellectual and emotional growth for a lot of folks. And, of course, that requires some openness to it. I've had students take this course and not really show signs of that kind of growth on the spot because they weren't necessarily receptive to it, and they still kind of managed to kind of get a 60 something because they did the work. And but sometimes I understand sometimes the little light bulbs go off later in life, so I'm hoping this will at least plant some seeds. So, what are the components of the weekly activities, the weekly learning activities? Well, the first part is questions based on readings or videos. So I'm going to be posting material every week for you to read, for you to view. There's going to be a PowerPoint where I go over some of the points from the reading and video, and you're going to be given a document every week with some questions. And they're usually kind of short-ish reflection questions, or think about this, what do you think of this, why was this written the way it was, or that sort of thing. And that will be posted up in Leia under assignments and Dropbox. So if we go to Leia, I can find it in these 20 million open tabs, and I go here to our course, which is Native Peoples, and assignments in Dropbox, list of assignments, like so. You're going to go here, and there's nothing here now, but I'll stick them in there each week, and you'll be able to download them and work directly in the document, and then you will resubmit it in the same place. Okay, so there's a place there where you can go upload your assignment. I will, put some feedback on it, a mark, and I will put it back there so you can get it back. The second, and that's worth 2 points, 2 out of the 4. Okay, so that's half of your weekly marks right there. And I'm not expecting essays here, right? So, those 2 or 3 questions, we're looking at 50 to 75 words, all right? Just enough to kind of, okay, show me that you got something out of this. The vocabulary practice quiz. So every week there are going to be some terms that we're going to learn, and as we go, they'll recycle so that you kind of keep practicing them. And it's really important to me that you leave this course, and again, particularly if you're non-indigenous and this is completely new to you, you might still kind of, and don't feel bad. A lot of my colleagues, some of the people who teach you in your other courses, might be misinforming you as well, because I'm always having to correct them because they went through the same colonial system as a bunch of us did. So it's not malicious for the most part, but it is respectful to actually learn and use the correct vocabulary. So knowing the difference between Indigenous and First Nations, for example. How many of you thought they were the same? A lot of my colleagues think they're the same thing and use them interchangeably, but they're not. And some words, some names that people have for themselves, like Yankahaga instead of Mohawk. So we'll practice these terms. So each week there's going to be a small practice quiz, just maybe 3 or 4 terms, and it'll be kind of multiple choice or true or false or that sort of thing. And these little weekly practice quizzes, they're going to help you practice for the 2 bigger quizzes that we see in the semester plan and in Leah in the evaluation chart, where you see there are 2 quizzes, one worth 4% and one worth 6. It's going to be the same terms from those practice quizzes. So you're getting practice as you go along. So every week I'm going to, in the same document where I give you these questions, the final part of that will be a link to the quiz for that week. And that's worth 1% out of the 4. So now we're at 3%. Now that last 1% is a journal, and I know I can hear some of you like I'm creating this. It's Thursday, January 14th, and some of you aren't going to see this. I mean, I'm going to post this sometime before midnight. So if you're online and you see it and you look at it, you're going to be grown, but or maybe you're going to groan Friday or over the weekend or on Monday sometime next week when you see this. I can hear you groaning in the future. I know some students are turned off by the idea of journals. Other students really like it. This is not a therapeutic thing. I'm not a therapist by any means, but one of the things we're going to talk about is Indigenous ways of learning and knowing. And in Indigenous worldviews, they're not all the same because there are many cultures, but one thing that comes back is that learning happens in multiple ways. In Western educational institutions, we're trained that learning is just about intellectual knowledge. It's just mental. And that's very unfortunate because we're missing out on a bunch of ways of learning, but also it's not even true. Because we learn in a bunch of ways, and when we're not aware of those things, just because that we're not aware of them, it doesn't mean they're not affecting us. So our emotional reactions that we have to new knowledge or new perspectives, they're there whether we take them into account or not. Okay, so if you acknowledge them, if you read something and it makes you mad, well, then think about that. Why is this affecting me this way? Maybe it makes you sad. Maybe it makes you feel conflicted. You have mixed feelings. Maybe it fills you with a sense of inspiration. Jeez. And so learning is also physical. Now, unfortunately, with an online format, it's harder to do kind of hands-on things like go out to places where we could have these like physical experiences, but we still can kind of think in terms of our physical being in the world, our material conditions, having enough to eat, having access to some green spaces, especially now with like COVID, right? It's a big thing. Like people are cooped up in their homes a lot of the time, and a lot of people are like really wishing that they had access to a backyard with some trees and bushes, right? And so that sense of like being physically in the world, having access to what we need, like food, these are physical things, having the financial means to pay your rent and your bills and not always be afraid of being kicked out of your place, those kinds of things. So we can still kind of take that, and it's all linked, right? Obviously we're going to have emotional reactions to not having enough to eat in addition to physical reactions of hunger, right? So this is all connected. And Indigenous worldviews, learning is also spiritual, and sometimes some students kind of like, what do you mean? Especially if they're kind of like not religious at all, or even against religion, or whatever, Um, and for that, I mean, one of my mentors is Diane Labelle, who's an indigenous educator from Aguazazne, who now lives in Ganawage. So she's Ganyankehaga, sorry. And when she presents about this, about indigenous worldviews and learning and knowledge, the way she talks about being spiritual has nothing to do with spirits or gods or anything like that, which, if that's what it means for you, that's fine, right? But for some people it doesn't mean that. But it has to do, the way she explains it, with our sense of who we are in the world, right? So our connection with other people, our sense of self, and our roles in the world, being aware of your own unique gifts and what you can contribute to the world, because we all have them. Don't let anybody tell you that you're too stupid, that you're incapable, that you're incompetent. We all have strengths. We all have something unique and important to bring to the world. So being aware of that and wanting to act on that can be seen as a spiritual thing. So, and learning, if you learn things and it makes you indignant, which is an emotional thing, and you think, wow, it's not fair that I'm on stolen land and I don't have to worry about food, but the people whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years, some of them are living in the streets because they've been displaced. Right? And you want to act on that and figure out how you can support people, indigenous people who are trying to mobilize around this, right? So that's all, like, you've got all those 4 planes there. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to do in terms of journaling, is like kind of working through those connections. As we learn new material, it's not just intellectual knowledge. The intellectual component is important because more knowledge helps us understand our world better. But there are all these other things that are involved. And sometimes they can be a barrier to integrating new knowledge if we're not aware. Like, if something makes you angry, you're going to resist integrating that knowledge. Right? Working through that anger can help you understand, oh, this is why I'm reacting. Oh, yeah, I can look at this another way. So what's going to happen with this, technically speaking, is you'll get one Word document at the beginning of the semester, and you're going to download it. In that document, and I'm going to look over it in a separate video, you're going to have some leads on how to get started in your journal. Okay, and you'll be asked to use the same document all semester, with newer responses coming before older ones. So basically, we're going to have the same document that's going to go back and forth all semester. You're going to leave the old responses there because it's a dialogue. You're going to respond one week, I'm going to reply to your response, then you're going to create a new response, and some of those responses, as you'll see, you can even respond back to me, and it's this ongoing dialogue, right? So first step is you download it under, again, assignments in Dropbox on Leia. Write your first entry. You'll look at the guidelines, write your first entry, and this, after you've done all the other weekly activities, upload it back on assignments in Dropbox, get your document back after I've put it back there with my comments, use that same version to start over again the second week, resubmit it, and just the cycle continues all semester long. And that's your last 1%. So as you see, this all adds up to 4. And all of this should take you about the same as our class time would normally take you. And for some of you, depending on how much time you need, might be a bit more, might be a bit less. But I'm aiming for, roughly that. So let me know if you have any questions.